little lunch and learn. Let's see. Hopefully we went live. Oh, LinkedIn, did it go? Lost access to your LinkedIn. Click here to reconnect. Hold on while we figure out why LinkedIn is allow StreamYard. Come on, StreamYard. Let's see if I can go live now on here. All right. I think we should be live both on LinkedIn and YouTube now. Thanks everyone for joining. For anyone who doesn't or hasn't seen Chris's many posts, this is Chris Tabb. Honestly, you do a ton in the data space, but I'd love to get a quick background about you and kind of what you're up to right now.
Yeah, sure thing, Ben. And yeah, great to have you on the show. I think the first time we met, I ended up gate crashing a show you're on with Joe later in the evening for me on a Friday night. So yeah, a different Chris then. So yeah, a little bit about myself. Yeah, I use the hashtag Mean Data Streets. The modern data stack focus. I think I've tried to rename it now the business value data stack to try and take people's mind off the technology, which really is just there as a vehicle to provide that business value. Been in the industry longer than I'd like to admit, and maybe longer than you've been about, Ben. You're a bit younger than myself, so I've been in the industry 30 years. My first job in the industry was for Cognos in the 90s. Anyone out there remember products like Impromptu and PowerPlay, which were about the same time as Business Objects was its own company as well. Before that was acquired by SAP, and Cognos was acquired by IBM. So lived, breathed it, done pretty much every single role in the industry. Well, they were called different names back then. I think that's when we first met. We were talking about data engineering.
Yes.
Back then, I was an ETL developer. Never reverse ETL. Never developed reverse ETL. Well, may have done, but I used an ETL product rather than buying a separate one.
Yeah. Well, we like reinventing the wheel in the data world. It's a common habit. We seem to think we have new ideas all the time, but it feels like we don't.
No.
So, I mean, it sounds like, again, you've been doing things like on-prem. Like, how do you feel in this new world? Do you feel like there's anything really that new, or how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I always like to compare things to how they were before. I mean, data contracts being one example of that. Data observability being another example of that. I like to use the term, it's one of our strap lines now, look to the past, innovate for the future.
Okay.
Nothing was perfect in the past and nothing's perfect currently now. But if you take elements of that, and I think the benefit I've had as being in the industry for the length of time is I saw the pre-big data bubble. So what things were done there. I saw the big data bubble. I saw what that provided. I've seen the modern data stack era and how that's evolved. And I keep seeing common threads or as you say, reinvention of things that are already there. And I don't mind that. And I think that's great, to reinvent. But I think always look back to see what you're reinventing. Is it totally new or you're refining it? And we do like the habit of coming up with new buzzwords for things because unfortunately it's easier to sell in the industry, especially when it's led by vendors. So every era I think has brought something new to the game, and I think it's taken us to this exciting time we are now. I used to refer to as the data warehouse era, which was where I cut my teeth. Where Bill Inman and the likes of Kimball were the thought leaders of that era. All on premise, all very expensive. It required a lot of planning to go and get the budget, and the projects were normally failures and failures with a large amount of money. The likes of Agile coming around, pay-as-you-go services. It enabled everyone in the industry to get that capability within your organization. Redshift was a game changer for many organizations to get that sort of power of an appliance without paying for an appliance. I know the likes of the Teaser, Teradata, Exadatas. They're all over well over £1 million. And the other thing you didn't get then is you didn't get the DR capability, because no one was going to spend double it to go and have that high availability or failover.
Yeah.
So that meant that it was always downstream. So it was always that okay, don't worry, it's a data project. We'll do that after we've done this, and it was downstream. And when budgets got cut, that was a project that got cut. And then what you did the reporting on top of the operational system. Complete disaster. But that was the norm. I think what having that cloud capability with that, the high availability, contingency, failover, failover in different zones, different regions. You then people started seeing data as part of their complete operational system. Hence the rise of these reverse ETL projects. What I think we lacked, though, while doing that was the governance controls, SOX compliance. And I love Lauren's post and well, not her post no longer, but her shows she does with Mary and discussing why it's a bad idea to have your data warehouse processing your reverse ETLing data back into your finance system. I think a lot of that's down to the controls that are in place and how people work and getting that lineage, making sure that your engineers know the consequence of those changes and there's the correct testing in place.
Yeah.
There should be no reason we're using SDLC processes, software development processes, that you couldn't have that environment that does satisfy those requirements. I wouldn't suggest mixing up and maybe use the same approach with the right governance in place, very tightly controlled. Maybe not using it to put into your accounting system, but sometimes putting data back into your operational system is a requirement. And I know a lot of companies are doing automated sales processes on the back of what that customer score is, the customer lifecycle value. That may not change too often, but you want to make sure that you're giving the right experience to the right to the customer on their journey that warrants the value they provide to your company. And if you don't get that accurate, you may lose a very, very profitable client because you haven't treated them the right way, because your processing within your data appliance or your data platform wasn't well managed.
Yeah.
I do know of a scenario where influencers buying clothes online, returning them back often. It's a big problem. And a particular company wanted to stop that. So I think this is where business rules are very important, and how they get translated into code and implemented is also very important. But if you want to stop people that returning things as serial returners, so anyone that hits a high percentage of returns, you want to stop them.
Yeah.
But not if there's their first order. So if you do the first order and they return it back, doesn't mean they're a bad customer. It's just their first order. So having requirements and it goes back down to that one I always talk about is the business value, working close with the business, and with the best data scientists and the best data platform at your fingertips, without understanding how the business works or what they want to achieve, what you implement may be very different to what they expected.
Yeah. I think that I was having that conversation recently with a client of mine who was like, "Oh, we want to implement an LLM, or we want to use machine learning in somewhere." And I was looking at it, I'm like, honestly, I just think it's a bunch of business rules. When you're explaining this to me, you're like, "But we just want can't the model just figure it out?" I'm like. And I use a different example, but the example for technical people I use is it's like trying to tell a machine learning model to figure out fizz buzz, right? Like the fizz buzz game. I don't know if you know the fizz buzz game.
No, I don't.
Oh, the fizz buzz game, for when you're in programming, sometimes they'll ask you a question to be like, oh, program a solution that prints out fizz if you're counting up numbers 1, 2, 3. Every time you hit basically something that's divisible by 3, if it's divisible by 5, it's buzz. If it's both, 3, 5. Or say fizz buzz. And it's like, okay, well, you could create an ML model based on some training data that kind of can figure it out, and it'll probably be wrong a percentage of the time, or you could just tell it the rules. There are rules. There are clear rules. You don't need to implement an LLM model. So I think that's
and,
funny.
and I think this is where LLMs can provide that value. And we're talking about the future of the data space and what's changing. And generative AI is the biggest buzz out there. And I think for the first time, I'm really quite happy about there being a hype about something, because for people to actually achieve what they think, or what generative AI could or can provide a customer or a company, is you're going to need to do all the things that we've been talking about for ages: getting the governance in place, getting the quality in place, getting reliability in place, getting the monitoring in place, getting ownership in place, you got to do all these things. And which is good, because I think I'm really hoping it is, from sort of like the feedback I'm getting at the moment, it is generating the right conversations now. Data quality wasn't something that was top of companies' discussion points at the board level, definitely. I think that has that now is becoming a known thing. Even though I hate the term observability, I think monitoring is really making a bit of a comeback, if people want to know. Monitoring is something that I worked on, what I'd call the 6 components I think make up monitoring. And I did this because I was speaking to so many observability products or companies, vendors, and none of them could actually articulate which bits of the platform they're observing and which bits there aren't. And I started thinking, well, how many observability products do I need to have full observability of my data platform? And you don't always have to buy a product for each of these things. But if I was to give it up as the levels, and map it onto things we already know, or capabilities that I think you want to monitor, application performance monitoring is at the bottom. It is what your data dogs, your new relics, and have been around for ages. Not so much in the data space, but they've been around in the infrastructure and cloud infrastructure space for a long time. I think next, which is more relevant for the industry, really, is the SaaS world. Mm-hmm. And this modern data stack is normally made up of multiple SaaS products, normally too many, I think, in my opinion. Simplification is needed there, but you need to do monitoring on it. And the environment we've created now, we've made that very difficult, because we have so many moving parts, and there isn't a common sort of understanding of what metadata contracts look like. I'm use that term. What metadata is available at each area, and where would that all go and be stored in one place? I refer to it as like the metadata. So it's an analyzing all your metadata, and that's the next level of optimization, and also very useful for your LLMs or anything you want to train to look for other optimizations or insight. Next thing is connectivity. So we've all seen our DAGs, Airflow and Dagster and the other products that are orchestrating your data. Back in my day, it was a computer associate scheduler system that you just used to call little batch files that were in the right order, that collected the right information. But it needed something to orchestrate it. But you also want to monitor that schedule, where the failures are, where the restart positions are. I've got a big bugbear a little bit about restartability of pipelines. You see so many CTEs being used, temp tables being used, very long one block, no clear dependencies defined. The failure runs, the rest of the batch runs. You get bad results. We get a bad name. We get calls. The data team gets shouted at. It's a challenge. So I think the next level of monitoring, there's only 6, don't worry, we'll get there, is content. And that's sort of like the weighing the data in, weighing the data out. The good old, reconciliation, reject tables in the past of looking at anything that hasn't met any of the keys or rules that you've defined. Then we're in the quality arena. So quality, I think, comes in two types. You've got quality at ingest, so at the time you receive that data. We've got quality over time, because the rules of the ingest, you may need to have nulls may be allowed, but you don't want over 90% of the things to be nulls. So you can't check that until I call it data degradation, checking data's quality and tracking that over time. And the last one is the usage, which lands very nice in that FinOps space. It's who, what, where, how much they're using, and having that linked to any associated costs. and ownership of the quality or maintenance of it as well. So I think so. There's some areas that I see us getting better at now because of the focus on the importance of data in an organisation. I think it is exciting times. I've got some other. I don't want to ramble too much. I've got some other thoughts around the whole mapping world as well of creating those data models and mapping source systems to it, which that's the next area that we're going to see some exciting innovation, I'd say.
Okay, it sounds like you almost have either something that you know, or or maybe just some preferences.
Nothing I know. It seems a logical evolution of it. I'm not going to break any NDAs or anything like that if I talk about this. But let's like spitball this now. What I think this looks like. So, there's not that many data models in the industry that to satisfy reporting requirements, and there's not that many. They'll have customizations to it, but an insurance company, there's a good, depending on life insurance, car insurance, there'll be a good data model that would satisfy most of the needs. And it's probably, if you start at scratch now and maybe use something to help generate that, or a blueprint templated one that had been verified, maybe crowdsourced as this is what we think is an industry standard. And I think there's ones already out there with open banking in the UK, which you could all very well describe attributes and metadata and relationships. You can create one of those data models using the structure provided and having it's satisfying the right requirements. Mm-hmm. Then you have to think shift left. How many different combinational source systems do you have? And this has been a game that all of the vendors have been playing out, that which one they build adapters for, where they focus their efforts. The low hanging fruit: Salesforce, Dynamics for CRMs, ERP systems, NetSuite. There's the usual suspects. And you'll probably find that many of the organizations, especially if they're coming into it, I think they can pick and choose which ones they use. If you normally go with the common vendors out there, okay, now I've got my data model that is the default best practice for that. I've got the source systems. The source systems should be well documented with their attribution of what they are. There can only be so many mapping combinations that are out there, and you probably get a good job of a first guess on some of the things. But if you actually started crowdsourcing that, there were another open source community out there again. Hey, God, I've modeled this. I'm happy to use this. I feed it back into community. You'll see that pre-templated data pipeline derivations, business rules, you'll be there probably 80-90%, and mapped into, done delta logic for you, done proper restart processes through it all. That's the biggest overhead and cost to building data products. And if you're able to learn by a community that has validated it, crowdsourced it, optimized it, maybe you make that into an enterprise product, and then you sell that with a predefined templates and give updates as and when the community have done that. So I see that. I mean, you talked to Rivery. I mean, Rivery have had kits similar to that. It's a similar approach, but it's done by one. The scaling of that becomes quite difficult. And if you start to be able to crowdsource that out there, then I think that's going to accelerate. I also think it will create a new era of challenger organizations. I don't know if you use it in America as much. We have the term of challenger banks. Challenger banks were the ones that are challenging the high street. And I think the next era is probably the challengers. So even the ones that have been around and been able to utilize the first lot of cloud capabilities, maybe utilize some of the SaaS ones, now then go, right, I can get a whole system and reporting end to end. With that would be cheaper to run, quicker to change, enhance, and better than the market leaders out there. And they've been in the industry for a while. I can beat them on service. I can beat them on cost now. I'm more efficient. I'm leaner. And I think that will spread to other organisations. I think the legal space is another one.
Yeah.
They which is quite good. We're speaking to a few, and they're sort of like the greenfield industry that's still out there for data. There's some obviously that
I feel like legal, at least in the US, has always been like they have no inclination to move quickly, and nor do they need to. France, like
they didn't. I don't think. I think. Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But
because of like, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So I mean, I've got this sort of like and I went to Data Driven and Matt Turksing, and everyone's talking about prompt engineers, LLMs, and I'll just go, oh, that's metadata. Oh, that's data ops with some steroids. Oh, okay, that's just JSON template or Ginger templating of stuff. Oh, okay, nothing's really changed that much. But the analogy that he used on there to describe it to me is you're Neo in the Matrix. You want to learn karate. You're going to upload the best karate into your head, into your own personal LLM in your brain. But then also you're going to prime it. You're going to prime it with environmental information of where you are at that time, weather conditions, so the strength of the wood near you or whatever, because you can some sort of martial arts sort of fight off. Then in your back pocket, what you want to have is the best hand combats, the best kicking combats, the best flying, whatever else is the next special, and you want to have those primed. If you try and convert that to the legal industry, and or if they want to prime it with their best cases that have had all the metadata captured of when they won the case, what they didn't, any case law that's referenced it, any differences, I reckon I'm pretty sure it would probably write a legal case as good as a junior or mid-level legal practitioner, which would have to be verified, and you wouldn't go straight away. But if you think of how that could start getting the best use of your internal knowledge as a legal practitioner, but also be one step ahead of everyone else and win the cases, because your overhead, you'll be able to win a case with a lot less effort. Maybe you still charge the client the same. Well, I'm not me to judge, but would they know? But sorry, that was a fire alarm going off here, I think. Sorry. So I think there's I think there's industries that are prime for disruption. I think there's other ones out there that I think it's the next era of sort of challenges, like where they can get the competitive edge because others can't move that quick. And I think the next thing I've been thinking of is maps to knowledge. So we've had marketplace data, Snowflake is selling theirs, Amazon got the equivalent, but and there's screen scrape or web scrape data that is being sold or marketed by other companies. But if you're going to start training your LLMs up, or generative AI, the competitive advantage is going to be how well trained they are, because everyone's got the same open source AI or even pay as you go services out there. Everyone's got access to that now. It's not as if it's an elite sort of capability but it's being able to point them at the most accurate data is going to get you that competitive advantage. So if you were to, for example, you go, okay, I'm going to go train it on this marketplace data that's available on Snowflake, and I'm going to train it on this stuff I've just downloaded. How do you know who's rated the quality of that data? Who's verified that data is the best one for you? But if you had other people that had been performing that rating, or even doing a crowdsources verified DOA architect, I think DOA, distributed authority. But people have gone off and we're validating it, and we'll get remunerated for that validation if done in a blockchain sort of methodology. Of we'll have the workers go out and validate that data. We'll provide you the map to that data. You pay us a bit of money, and we can guarantee that, or we'll provide guarantee that it'll be outperform if you train that data elsewhere. And the good thing is you can actually start benchmarking this stuff. So very quickly, you say, okay, train it up, have a generative AI off. You know, who gave me the best answers, and quality will start to be easy to demonstrate the upside of it. Whereas before, it was very hard for organisations to to show the impact of poor quality data.
Well, it's always hard to show until it's not, right? Like until someone's like, "Why are we $1 million off this report?" or something. And although I think Ethan had a good Ethan Aaron, I think he was on. Oh, I think it was on Lauren's podcast, was talking about how it's like, if you're using your like analytics reporting systems to do financial reporting, that's hard. I'm like, I've definitely been there. It's always like you're always off. Like even when you're not, you're like off by like $2, and like someone knows it for some reason. Someone's like, no, I know it. I saw it this morning from NetSuite or wherever. And so it's like, yeah, it's great directionally, but it's generally really bad to be 100% accurate. Don't get me wrong, you can get it accurate, but
and I know from experience of doing some migrations from Teradata to Snowflake. We had to build a whole reconciliation engine to go and validate the differences. It's just rounding differences, and rounding differences, they all roll up. They all roll up to quite large numbers. And sometimes it was actually the new recording was actually more accurate than the old ones, and you had to prove why the old one was inaccurate.
Yes.
So you have this double side reconciliation that's going on. Very hard to do, and that's why there's accountancy packages out there.
That I think that's like the funniest and like the worst situation to be in, where it's like it's wrong, but you're like, but I'm right. So
who's righter? Who's the most right?
Especially if it's like it's wrong and it's really wrong, and we've been wrong for the last 3 years. So do we say that? Do we say we've been wrong for the last 3 years, or do we just kind of like keep being wrong? Or
and then you do you correct it, you do your year-on-year analysis, and then you say, wow, look at the differences. Oh yeah, but last year was wrong, so it's okay. We're actually not doing too bad. Well, we need to correct the historic data as well, otherwise we really haven't got a clue what we're doing.
Yeah, I think people probably think data people are a little bit nuts, and this is partially why. It's just like we're constantly staring at numbers and like, oh, great, it's still off, but it's off because of timing or because of weird systems that got migrated. Yeah, like you said, like I definitely have a few clients right now where they're like, oh yeah, we have data before then, but that was before this like merger or before this other thing that happened, so it doesn't matter. And you're like, oh, okay. Okay, I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I like to use the term like these sort of things causes friction internally, and building this business up and just learning experience the whole time. But it's working out internally. As you grow, things start slowing down, and you have to go, well, why is it taking so long? And sometimes it's that human knowledge of, oh, I ignore that because of this, but everyone's always going to ask the same question, and then so I've just seen this happen. Why? Oh, don't worry about it. But they have worried about it. They've wasted time. They're not doing what is going to add more business value. Going back to my business value piece, and you're adding friction internally, which is slowing you down. And I think friction that has a cost associated to it. It's not free money. If someone's investigating a problem that isn't a real problem, they could be investigating something that is a real problem. So it has a negative. It has a double negative because you're not moving forward, you're not even moving forward.
So. No. I think that's a great way of describing it. I think it's like friction's one way, annoyance is another, right? Like you said, like I've definitely been there where it's like you've spent a day or two. Like, this is weird. Like, let me go like try to figure out and be helpful. And then like you come back and you're like, did you guys know all of this? And then they're like, oh yeah, that's because of this thing. And you're like, how was I supposed to, like, I'm just trying to do my job here. I was asked to analyze this data. So I analyzed it, and apparently I went all the wrong directions. So
we've built up some of the to try and help organizations with their maturity. And that monitoring one I was reading out earlier is one of our lenses that we look at when trying to help companies decide, do I need to buy an observability product? What do I need to observe, and when do I need to observe it, and what's the right order of doing it? And I think we've got 6 of these ones. They're all a slightly different lens, but they all complement or will link back to each other. And I think helping organizations work more optimized. So there's one we've got which is focused on data delivery. So it's look, and we've looked at been some very large organizations where they're doing scaled agile. Everyone's done their story points for what it's going to take to build a database, what's going to take to the users for it, what's going to take to the roles for it, what they're going to do for any S3 bucket. But because it was spread out across multiple teams, people doing different bits of it, they didn't realize they had to do it in all the right order. And when people are requesting these things, they want a package which provides a solution, a business service. I want an environment. Oh, an environment includes all these things here. So if I just request that environment, I'm able to create business services that deliver those activities collectively or in the right order, or via a process, service now, or something that has all the workflow in it. It becomes much easier to estimate and reduces that friction of delivery. So we've got this one on data ops, looking at the components and the stuff we talked about earlier. People just make things too complicated, and people jumping in and having this technology-led initiatives. Are going, right, we're going to build a modern data stack. All right, we're going to build all these things, and we're going to start using it. Okay, well, what's your first use case for using it? And you've already just spun it up on pay as you go, so you didn't have to secure any budget. But eventually, your CFO is going to come around and go, "What the hell is this cost coming through each month on my cloud spend?" So you need to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. And a lot of stuff I'm working with Matt Housley, Matt anyway on food.
Yes,
So doing stuff on a lot on business value, and we've got like a working title, a Substack. We won't get content as quick as you, Ben, but we're putting some stuff out which is
nice.
Called the High Performance Data Playbook. So what's the right things to do in the right order? And we've started using the terms business value channels. So business value channels are things that help monetize. And monetize, I prefer to use business value. And the definition of business value is an evidenceable positive impact on your bottom line, or an evidenceable positive future benefit, which comes a little bit harder if you're in growth mode. So in a growth mode, it could be another metric, which is your share price, market share, or potential future business value, rather than value this year, depending on what mode your company is. And I think the clever companies will go for optimization funded growth activities. And we've got this concept of all your projects are a portfolio of activities. And your portfolio should always be able to provide you evidenceable, back to that word again, value every quarter to your board meeting, or ideally every month, or every quarter at least. A salesperson can have 2 bad months, quarters, but never in a row. They're out the door.
Yeah.
And I think the data team or data leaders have had that same problem, because they've had 2 bad, project delayed. Okay, get out. We're going to start again. Someone else comes in. No, you're doing it all wrong. That's why it failed. No, It didn't fail. It didn't fail because of that. It failed because you didn't release incremental value that kept the business happy, that gave you that nice story every quarter. But those little stories are feeding through to build you that modern data platform that you've drawn up on your whiteboard. You've named all the technologies, you've done the flows, you've done the retention policies, you've done where the business logic's going to be, you've defined your data contracts, you've got your quality rules all being fed in. Perfect design, like work of art. But the business haven't got a clue what it does. The business, I just want to make money from this business value channel. which business value channel would you like to make money from business? Or I want to be able to sell curated data. All right, now I know what stack I'm going to need to have in place to deliver that. Maybe it might be I want to optimize my onboarding process. Okay, right. You need to collect all your metadata, link to business processes, collect that data. I can tell you then how to optimize that. They're really happy, right? All those things are adding through little bits of my components of my little. You have a little like tick box on your wall and your whiteboard.
Yeah.
Like, right, we've got the ingest in, and they didn't even know why we got it. Oh, they've got the quality product we want. Yeah, but you've delivered it as part of some value for the business, and they don't need to know that you've gone and used Great Expectations, Soda, Anomalo, Kenzu, or whatever to go and do it. You know, you've just solved their business problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we, as a data organization or a community, the reason I do this stuff, I love it as well. But I suppose trying to run a business as well. But you know, it's trying to share this. It is hard, all right, but it's not impossible. And I think if you apply the right approach, do things in the right order, have a playbook when it's written, that gives you that path, and know. And we looked at trying to work out, is there one size fits all? And I don't think there is. There's not like a, here you go, this is an end-to-end strategy that we'll do for everybody. What it is it's a path, a journey where you'll probably go around in cycles, and you'll think, okay, right, that's good enough for now. Right, that data ops is good enough to get us where we're going. Let's focus on getting something to the business, and we'll come back. We'll put in the, you know, the rollback process, or we'll put in the, we'll put in we'll remove that manual effort that we've got to do at this stage here. It's not worth it now, you know.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that is we looked at is talking about people's time. I know my time is the most precious asset I have now. Yeah. Because I can't buy any more of it, and I can only work so many hours a day. I've pushed the limits on that sometimes, and that's the limitation. So you need to be effective with your time. And we were working with our clients, very large Snowflake client, but when queries were going bad or cost, it came up as this query's cost this much money. We need to look at it, and we spent a lot of time doing it. And I know what the cost of each data engineer on that meeting is. I know how many meetings we've had to follow up on it. I know how many hours people had to spend looking at it. All right, now I'm going to look at the cost of that individual query. It might have been expensive, but we've just blown $7,000 in 2 meetings, and one guy looking at a bit, and find out it was only run once a month anyway. All right, let's let it go. You know, it's $200 a month. All right, we're not going to get our $7,000 back for. I'm not going to do the maths now, but it's 5 7s, 35, 35 months time. Yeah, I don't know, but it's you're not going to get the value back, and your CFO is going to be quite upset that he hasn't had something else that adds more value to the organization. So we built. There's loads of tuning things out. We built something called the tuning factory, which is it's more to show where you've got bad data models and bad rather than use this warehouse, use that warehouse. It runs, put it in Snowpark, it'll go through, and it's clever enough to work out a query is the same query, even though it may have different input values in. So it groups it up and go, right, I know that one there, but it's only ever run very infrequent. It creates like a sort list of like, hey, these are the ones you focus on, and then the engineers, they're only focused on things that are actually going to save you some cost. Obviously, in this example, Snowflake credits.
I think there is something to that where we like to optimize on the wrong things sometimes, or we think we're saving money when it's like, but is it really?
Shiny object syndrome. It's like the magpie syndrome. Oh, but I can use some Rust on this or something like that, or I can
It'll make it that much faster.
Exactly. And I'm going to get ChatGPT to write it because I don't know how to do it, and I won't be able to verify if it's doing the right thing.
Oh, that's too funny. That's too funny. So you brought up data modeling. I think that's something that will continually be pined upon in the data world. We will just continue to, I don't even know, beat the dead horse or argue what's right, what's wrong. Should we be spending 2 years planning a data model? Like,
No,
what are you seeing?
yeah,
What are
yeah,
go.
and yeah, it's on my it was one of the hot topics, and I do love Joe Reese's "Burn It All Down" discussion, which is a great discussion point, and that I think JBot is just big one table,
Oh yeah.
convert extreme of full data vault. I think it's the appropriate modeling for the environment and the the maturity of the organization. But I think the main thing is actually understanding your entities that actually run your business. Right? How you've structured it, you can always change those structures. Having definitions for things. Maybe you've got that same definition in multiple places because you've created parallel pipelines. Okay, but at least it's defined the same each time. Understanding how that data is being used and consumed. So I talked about that monitoring. Don't go and re-architect something that you find out no one's actually ever using it. I've been in so many transformations where we've got 15,000 OBIE reports or trying to think of another one, Tableau reports to convert or something. Well, are you sure you need to convert them all? Yeah. Yep. So that's the list I've been given. Well, let's go and see. Let's do this. Should we go and disable all of them one Friday and see how many complaints we get? And we didn't quite go to that extreme, but we started looking at the last time they were run. I think it's not run with a month. It became on request, sort of like it was disabled. Like people you were able to reduce it down to about 25% of the effort. We'll go back to data modeling, but Ron Itterman, I think is, we talked to him about the KPIs of KPIs. And I think actually having performance indicators on your KPIs, I know it sounds a bit strange, but knowing how they use, when they use, what quality they got from, and also, are they actually linked to your organization's strategy? Are they metrics that are actually being used for decisions? Because if they're not, why are you creating them? So go back to that whole data modeling thing. I think data modeling, I think we need to take it a level up. I think it's business process modeling as well. That maps onto data. And that's going to be a key thing to help with optimization, because if you don't know how your data is used or capturing it at different points, you can't measure it, you can't optimize it. So I think having things linked to that, as with the discussions of Kimball versus Inman versus Data Vault versus just one big table, I do support Kimball's dimensional modeling. I think as an understandable, queryable, supportable by many products out there, it's the right thing for that use case. Feature modeling, but having them all to be created from a central enterprise, refer to it as, or a persisted that has central applied business rules on it, you can then create whatever you want off that, and it's always going to be created in the same place. So you're not tied in, as long as you have a good source approach. Make sure that you keep your immutable data, so you keep all the original ones. You can always replay things back. Have some good business rules applied in just one place. I'm not going to dictate exactly which place, but having it centralized in one place. Having common entities that are seen across, like I would call conformed or shared objects. Using persisted work tables to always track where things on, so you to restart things. And these things, you'll use what's the right one, but whatever modeling technique you use, you're going to need to decide on those aspects. I will say where I'd favor Data Vault over not using Data Vault, and I think that's in some large organizations which have got a legacy migration plus a new project coming at the same time. It's very hard to satisfy that requirement without having some ability to abstract you from the changes. And Data Vault provides that, whereas you're mapping in the two different sources in the same place. It allows you to test along the same time, but it's an overhead. I won't deny it. So you need to look at, does that overhead warrant the additional value? And if it does, you do it. And there's people you can go to advice on that, I'm sure.
That's too bad. I think the funniest part about that was the OBI and like BI reports and telling like, oh yeah, like, or is anyone using this anymore? I think I read a comment from someone who used to work at Facebook, and they turned. We have a few when I worked there. There's like a few systems that like sweep things like tables and dashboards based on usage. And they're like, yeah, once we turned it on, it like threw away like 90% of the dashboards. Like after like a month, it was like, yeah, no one's looked at this for 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like probably shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Or probably needs to be rebuilt at this point, or you know, something with it.
Yeah, well, it's obviously not supplying the right information, otherwise people would use it. And I don't think it's normally people don't know it's there.
Yeah,
it is normally it's not used. I suppose it goes quite nicely onto the whole data contract discussion. So Andrew Jones obviously did the book on PACS. I reviewed some of the chapters, giving some stuff on that. It was interesting, but again, it was I'm too old for it. We got that before. Oh yeah, that was like an equivalent of an ISO 8583 payment contract. Oh yeah, that's how I referred to. I call things data input layer and a data access layer. It was okay. Yeah. It's a contract to put the data in with validation. It's a contract to get the data out. And so those concepts have been around for a while, and they're probably more in that operational world than in the data world.
Yeah.
But then it does lead quite nicely onto like the ownership of contracts, who owns which side, putting that quality. We talked about quality earlier, and with the data teams have always been, you know, the end of the chain, and always the blames for when the data is bad, and it's very rarely the data team's fault for the poor quality of the data that's there. And I think that shift left approach to data contract should be moved as close to the data inception or entry into your platform. And if you start putting those things in there, you know, it becomes a much easier thing to manage. And you know, maybe you'll get a better use out of your data engineers than rather looking into some misreporting that's been caused because an operational system changed that never got fed back to the data team to change.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I think as someone like, you know, anyone who's been down the weeds, it's always like this hard place to be in. Like I often think joke about like, oh yeah, like we should always try to fix data at the source. But as someone who's been there, it's like, yeah, have you tried? Have you ever talked to a software engineer and asked them to be like, hey, could you fix this or do this for me? Or could you like add in some logic so I don't have to do a case statement here? And it's like, yeah, they're not going to do it. They're like, I don't get a bonus, or I don't get, like, that's not what I get rewarded for. So why would I, you know, care? And it's not, you know, it comes down to incentives a lot of times.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, the incentives one. And I think back down to the business and IT business and data teams not always working as close together, and getting everyone knowing that they're a cog in a very big engine, and they're very important. You know, without them, it doesn't. The world or your company would suffer. And I think that comes from a community thing of understanding. For example, you know, the CEO's told the data team, you've got to go clean up all this data, and they go, oh, I don't want to do this. Well, I've got to do that. But if they were to explain, by the way, we've got this really great opportunity, which it could mean that everyone's bonuses is going to be a lot bigger this year because we've exceeded all the expectations. You know, I go, wow, God, I am part of this. I'm important. You know, I'm making a difference, and we all make a difference. And I think Brian, I can't remember his surname, did a post the other day, and it was, as data people, we always go, oh, life's so bad, everyone blames us data people. But the payroll people have their own problems as well, and everyone has their own problems, and we're all part of a fine-tuned engine, and sometimes we need a bit oiling.
Yes, yeah, I think that's I think were you referencing Chad's post maybe possibly earlier, or maybe not that, but I remember one where he's like, when I was a data analyst, I blamed like the data engineer for my problems. When I was a data engineer, I blamed the software engineer for my problems. When I was like the manager of data teams, I blamed this. And yeah, I mean, like when it comes down to it, we're all doing our own thing and we all have our own problems. And it's not necessarily a specific fault. It's just like the system in itself often needs to be either re-architected or something that everyone can win. But yeah, it's hard. It's easy to say, hard to like.
I know. I'm just here preaching, and it all sounds really easy, but I'm preaching for being in the battle scars of being on the mean data streets, as we call them. It isn't easy, and the more the stuff you've been doing, Ben. I mean, the stuff of your community and the reach you've got on it. The more that we can share this information, carve that path in the right way, help people understand what's the path of least resistance. What's that river that makes its way there? It carves its natural way through. So helping people make the right decisions. We've got some questions. I think one question coming. What's the next? What's the new big tech in the data world?
Is there anything new?
Well, I think there's probably. I think it's a collection thing. Obviously, generative AI. Everyone's talking about that, but I think it's just a nice packaged up components that we've already had before. I think the thing I was talking about earlier. I think the next big in the tech world will be automation. So automation in pipeline creation, simplification. But I think there's one big tech.
Oh, you still think there's it's like, but even like the funny thing is like you say automation. It's like, I mean, we've been doing automation since you could set up a cron job and
okay.
It's just like maybe improvements in the process because that's right. Like that's what it's been. It's been like, okay, cron's great, but we have to say like, okay, run job 1 at 12 o'clock. Okay, now takes about 30 minutes. Let's say 40 minutes just in case. Now run job 2 at 12:45. And then okay, we should build an orchestration system, and then I think I keep every time I remember the Airflow is like not that old. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's that old, but 2015, almost 10 years at this point, but like, relatively new in the world of data. When you think of Hadoop being something back from like, I think like 2003 or 8 or something, it's like, it's relatively new. And Tableau, same thing, like 2003. And still being big parts of the system today. So, 2015 is new.
It sounds like everything has like a 10-year life cycle, doesn't it? I think every 10 years there's something a little bit different, and they all bring something to the table. And we've got some more questions. Is Azure Data Fabric any good? I think it's very good if you use Azure Data Fabric softener as well.
I thought you were saying if you use Azure in general, but
well, I mean, it'll ease the pain of migrating from ADSL 1 or 2 to Data Fabric. It's called the Data Fabric. Now, it's new out. I'm not gonna be able to comment on if it's any good or not. It's very well marketed.
You got to give Microsoft credit for that because they probably dropped the ball so bad on Azure Synapse back forever. They're like, we cannot have that happen again. No one. The conversation is never like, oh, should we use Databricks or Azure Synapse Analytics? It's always like, okay, Databricks, Snowflake, or BigQuery, or maybe Redshift too, right? Like it's almost like Redshift, but Azure Synapse Analytics is like, unless you work on Azure already, you're probably not bringing it up.
And where I've seen it sold is the large organizations where it's sold at that top down, and unfortunately that it's not based on requirements or performance or any advanced testing really if it was satisfied. But we'll wait and see. They're a big player out there. Let's see what they do.
Microsoft kind of benefits from the fact that marketing is like, do they need good marketing every time? Nah, they've got distribution. There's like, we don't need perfect marketing.
Exactly.
So that's funny.
So where's the next for you then, Ben? What are you up to next? What's your travel movements?
Travel movement. I don't think I have any major travel plans set up. Maybe another data event at some point. There's so many data events going on in Denver. Like I had to take a break because I got married, so I was not
Oh,
planning any data
congratulations!
events. Yeah. So I was planning no data events and none in Denver. And I come back and I think there's like one every week in August, and I'm just like,
Wow.
what? Like DBT is doing one.
Okay.
Mozart Data is doing one. Databricks, I mean, not necessarily Databricks, but the person behind it works at Databricks, so they're kind of doing one. There might even be one more.
Wow.
And it's Denver, and I'm like, wow, I guess there's a lot of events going on.
I think what I liked about, I mean, Ethan's one of the similar sort of approaches. Ours isn't a vendor banging sort of like focus on it. It is just pizzas, beers, chat, meet people, and then realize you met people before you didn't realize, and then reintroduce yourself.
And then an appropriate amount of whinging is always
yeah.
At any data events. That's how you know you're at a data event. It's just a bunch of people complaining about the same problems we've been complaining about for 20 years.
Why doesn't the business understand us?
Man. Why is it every time my boss comes to me, they're like, this should be quick, and you're like, this is not quick.
I saw Zach's one. I think it was him saying, or maybe it was Chad or something, or something. When they go up and say, "Oh, just give me the data," and it's like, if I had £1 for every time I have that, I'd have 4,220,000.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot.
It should be easy. It's just right there. Like I see it. Yeah. It's not. But thank you. I appreciate your help and your advice. Same one for. I'm just reading this comment. I'm like, I don't know if it's the same problem or
they're coming in thick and fast at the moment. So I've got some movements for us. So I've got a London meetup on the 16th. Nice. Same day as Ethan's one, which is quite good because we can't be in the both places at the same time. And I got a Big Data London sort of like pre-meetup on the 19th of September. So I've got the details going out on that soon.
Nice.
I'm doing these data value shows where I'll get you on there as well, Ben, at some stage. But we got I think up till November. I got some good people coming on. So
nice.
I'm saving the best till later. So I'll get you on later, Ben.
Yeah. No worries. I know it's. I need to eventually get someone, an executive assistant, a coordinator, somebody that like help me with all this because I'm trying to plan a conference at the end of October, and I'm just like, I want to have tons of stuff, and I'm like, I need someone to help me, but it's so hard to like take a step back and like figure out what I need to ask for from someone and give them that.
Shout me later, anyway. I can give you a bit of a steer of what sort of things we do anyway.
Perfect.
I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. I don't know what else. What else is? I mean, I don't want to hold you too long.
I think an interesting one was it's coming. There was the DMZ. So we're talking about data contracts and ownership. So I think I did a comment of saying it's like the data DMZ, the demonitored zone or the demonetized zone. I think the ownership piece and maybe contracts will help with that. So maybe that. Having those data contracts where it has that quality piece of it, it has that the release cycle. It's going to help with that. I think.
Yeah. I feel like data contracts are some weird Rorschach test in the data world. Like it says something about what you've done, I guess, or how you operate. Because like I think Ethan Aaron is like. They'll stifle innovation. It gets nothing moving forward. Then obviously Chad has his perspective. And so I'm like, everyone. And then even what it means, like, I think there's like 60% of us all agree, or like 60% of it, we all kind of agree what it is. And then there's this extra bit that everyone has. Like, I also think it should have this. If you're referencing quality, some people might reference something else. And it's interesting, like how.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, so, and back to the thing I said earlier is a contract can only check the quality at the point it is put in there. It can't always go back and check. Can't always go back and check retrospectively. How's the quality now? It's a contract. It's there. It's a gateway. It's how you've entered the building. Once you've entered, you can't track what's happened.
Yes. Well, I don't want to hold you too long. I don't know if you have any other plans for the day, or are you in?
I'm
Are you
heading
on?
heading into Manhattan to catch up with Matt, this bit on the book,
Oh,
and
nice,
then I'm
nice,
gonna hang out with JT. We've got some meetup thing to go to. I'm gate crashing
nice.
that. I don't know where I'm going actually, but
Are
yeah.
you just so? Are you just permanently in the U.S. now, or?
No, I'm 50-50. So I go back to UK for a couple of weeks and back here for a couple of weeks. I
Okay.
probably will be more majority over here.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, foot in both sides at the moment still.
How's that? That's. I mean, like it sounds fun until you do it. So I'm like, how's
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I think I think I work different. Like I don't adjust my times over here. I get up very early. Over the UK, I don't. So
Yeah.
sort of like I only vary by 3 hours really.
Oh,
So
nice. Oh, that's nice.
it works quite well.
Perfect.
All right. Well, I think we're on the hour anyway. So
Yeah, we're still in the air. All good. No, I'm gonna say first off, thanks everyone for joining in. Appreciate it. Just wanted to catch up a little bit with Chris, just because I'm always curious. Hopefully you didn't share anything you didn't want to share. But yeah, thanks so
no,
much.
it's all stuff I'll comment about anyway. So yeah, anyone that's will follow me on LinkedIn if anyone's interested and
Yeah,
keep in touch. And yeah, the hashtag Mean Data Streets for some entertainment with information at the same time.
exactly. Yes, you're very diligent about that. So if anyone wants to find that, so look up Mean Data Streets. Cool. Well, again, thanks so much, Chris. Thanks so much everyone for joining. If you have anything else you'd like to say, let me know. If not, I can hit end broadcast.
Cool.
Cool.
All good.
All right, I'll hit end.